the latest plans, pupils will be given 2 tests 3 days apart. All who test positive will be sent home. But Schools Minister Nick Gibb has said the burden won't fall on teachers.
What we're saying is that volunteers will be used, and there's agency staff as well. There's some funding for schools to enable them to employ agency staff to conduct these tests. There'll be PPE available to schools.
Despite the doubt over the reopening in January, it's just a week since the Education Secretary threatened to sue councils which told schools to close their doors due to rising infection rates. Greenwich and Islington councils recommended an early start to the Christmas holidays, but U-turned, after Gavin Williamson said they could be hit with legal action. Well, to discuss this further, I'm now joined by teacher and trade unionist Martin Powell-Davies. Martin, afternoon. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Hello.
Children will be last to get a vaccine. Mass testing is the only way to keep this under control in schools, isn't it?
Well, how can it be that vaccination comes lower down the list when the news that's come out in the last couple of days about the more infectious variant has particularly been rocketing amongst school-aged children? The situation has been absolutely chaotic, where, as you say, they have been telling schools that they have to stay open at the same time as they haven't prepared for the mass testing. Yes, we need mass testing, but we need it properly, reliably carried out.
Yes,
and that means making sure schools know what's happening.
Yes, you say the testing reliably carried out, and the government says it won't be teachers doing those tests. Does that give you confidence?
Well, most school leaders still don't know who these volunteers are meant to be, how they're meant to get that set up for the beginning of next term. As any of us who have had to take a swab from our own noses during this pandemic knows, it's not an easy thing to do. It's quite painful. You need to have proper training to do that, and then to make sure the results are reliable, which is absolutely key. So there needs to be properly trained staff to do it, not trying to do it on the cheap, and that still isn't clear. It's still not in place.
It seems ironic, doesn't it, that last week the Education Secretary was threatened to sue councils closing the schools, those particular schools in those London boroughs, and now they're admitting that schools might not be back on time. What do you make of that?
Well, it was completely contradictory, but absolutely, the schools will not be ready for testing. Scotland has already announced that the first 2 weeks of term, these schools will not be opening fully, will mainly be online, and exactly the same thing needs to happen in England. Not just because of preparing for the testing, of course, but because the reality is they are doing the testing because they are now having to slowly admit everything that we've been saying for months, that schools are actually major centres for transmitting the virus, especially this new infectious variant.
Martin, how challenging has this been for you and your colleagues? You must be breathing a sigh of relief that Christmas is on the way.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the last days of term even, we didn't know what we were planning for the first week back. I've got classes preparing for exams, for example. Everybody is absolutely exhausted, but also really frustrated because the government has never taken the school situation seriously. And now they properly need to. They need to stop. They need to listen to us, and they need to agree that points that we've been putting forward, that there needs to be smaller classes, there needs to be online learning for the majority of pupils, staff and students that are at risk need to be working at home, and vaccination needs to come up the list, particularly for school staff.
Martin, thank you for being with us. Really good to talk to you. Martin Powell-Davies, thank you.
Thank you.